Right now on News 19 at 7, a closer look at what Governor McMaster has in store for the Palmetto State this year with his 6th State of the State address. From the economy to education, Governor McMaster lays out his plan for the future, and we'll hear the Democrat response as well. It's the 2023 State of the State address, right now on News 19 at 7. And good evening, 7 o'clock here on your Wednesday night, and we are standing by for Governor Henry McMaster and that State of the State address. He is expected to touch on a number of items tonight, including jobs, the economy, and education, as we take a live look now inside the House chambers, where again, this will be the governor's 6th State of the State address. He will be introduced any moment now. In the meantime, we do have Becky Budge, who is standing by inside the State House tonight with more details on what possibly we could be hearing from the governor this evening. Becky?
JR, we just had the South Carolina Senate walk past us here and head into the House chamber where they will hear McMaster's 6th State of the State address. He is likely to tout the state's economic success with record industrial investment in the last year, those record income tax rate reductions and raises for state employees and teachers. Lawmakers I spoke to expect no surprises here tonight. They expect him to stick with those 3 themes from his inauguration speech: education, environment, and economic development. And they also expect it to be non-polarizing and bipartisan. As they say, they need to work together to get all of his goals done, and we will continue to bring the coverage tonight. I hear clapping behind me. It looks like people are starting to settle down here and tune in to his speech. So back to you, JR.
All right, Becky, thank you so much. And again, a live look inside. You can see the governor is making his way down the aisle of the House chamber, where he will once again be introduced at the podium this evening before he gives his remarks. As Becky stated, there's a number of things that the governor is expected to touch on tonight. Perhaps some of the same things that he touched on last year. He did talk about infrastructure and funding to improve South Carolina's roadways last year, increasing teacher pay. That's been a theme coming out of the governor's office for the last couple of years now, and improving broadband across the state of South Carolina. So again, these are just some of the items, some of the subjects that we could be hearing the governor talk about again this evening. During the inauguration just a couple of weeks ago, House Minority Leader Todd Rutherford singing the praises of Governor McMaster, saying he is someone that Democrat lawmakers can work with, both in the House and the Senate. Let's listen in now as the governor is about to be introduced to the House and the Senate.
Orange and purple, isn't that a good color? You got your red. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen of the Joint Assembly and honored guests, I am proud to present to you the Honorable Henry Dargan McMaster, the Governor of the great state of South Carolina. Governor? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay. All right, y'all be seated, please. Y'all, I'm a little hoarse. I hope my voice holds out. Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the General Assembly, my fellow South Carolinians, we are here tonight to address challenges and opportunities. But first, as in prior years, I'd like to recognize those in uniform
whom we lost in the line of duty in 2022. Officer Roy Andrew Barr of the Casey Police Department, Deputy Austin Derek Aldridge of the Spartanburg County Sheriff's Office, Corporal Sarah K. Weaver of Florence County Emergency Medical Services, and Master Police Officer Terrell Owens Riley of the Columbia Police Department. To the families and loved ones of these brave South Carolinians, with all our hearts, we offer our condolences. We are eternally grateful for your service. I'm delighted to have with us once again tonight our First Lady, my bride Peggy, whose son Henry Jr., whose wife Virginia is at home with their 4-month-old daughter, Margot Gray. Also, our daughter Mary Rogers, whose husband Sam is home with their 7-month-old son, James Dargan. Will y'all please stand and let's say hello to you. Thank you. And our Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evett and her husband David are here tonight. Please stand and be recognized. Our state constitutional officers are here with us too tonight, including our new Superintendent of Education, Ellen Weaver. Will you please all stand and be recognized? Finally, will the members of the best cabinet in the nation please stand and be recognized? Thank you. The people of the great state of South Carolina have given me the honor and privilege of serving as your governor for another 4 years. My family and I thank you. My pledge to all is that we will not squander this opportunity. We will continue to act boldly, think big, and continue building on our successes. South Carolina is richly blessed with a hardworking and talented people. Our quality of life and cultural heritage, abundant natural resources, and prosperous economy make us unique and attractive to all. In fact, South Carolina is the 3rd fastest growing state in the nation, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. People want to be here. Our booming economy has once again created a record budget surplus, this year totaling over $3.5 billion in unexpected revenue. State government is in superior fiscal shape. Today, we have the largest rainy day reserve fund balance and lowest amount of debt than at any other time in recent memory. So, it should come as no surprise that 2022 was the most successful year for economic growth in our state's history, with the record for the largest capital investment project broken twice in the same year. In 2022, we announced 120 projects which will create over 14,000 new jobs, with $10.27 billion, $10.27 billion in new capital investment. That's almost 2.5 times as much as 2021 and more than ever before. As another sign of our economic strength, last year we almost quadrupled our foreign direct investment from the previous year. Excuse me. Every day, employers are creating new jobs, entrepreneurs are opening new businesses, and companies are deciding to locate in South Carolina. The Palmetto State has one of the nation's fastest growing container ports, 2 innovative inland ports, 33 airports, 2,300 miles of rail lines, and more than 41,000 miles of state-maintained highways. The Port of Charleston has the deepest harbor, 52 feet on the East Coast, and its volume will grow exponentially this year. There are 208 million people, 2/3 of the U.S. population, within 2 days' drive of South Carolina. Our thriving tourism industry continues to break records. Compared to pre-pandemic levels in 2019, in the 2022 fiscal year, accommodations tax collections were up almost 50%. Our state park system revenues were up 46%, and admissions tax collections were up 28%. Not only did we drive our way through a debilitating pandemic with our decisions based on common sense and the Constitution, but we thrived. Tonight, we will recognize several of the businesses which announced new investments in South Carolina during the record-breaking year of 2022. As you will notice, the automotive industry continues moving towards electric vehicles, and South Carolina is moving along with it. Last year, I issued an executive order prioritizing the recruitment of these manufacturers to ensure that our state will continue to be seen as an ideal place for manufacturers and their suppliers to do business. South Carolina will continue to adapt as industry innovates and grows. In Berkeley County, Redwood Materials will invest $3.5 billion, the largest announcement in the history of South Carolina, and create 1,500 jobs for a new battery materials recycling facility. In the upstate, BMW will invest $1.7 billion, the second largest investment in state history, $1 billion of which will prepare Plant Spartanburg to produce electric vehicles, and $700 million to build a new high-voltage battery assembly facility in Woodruff, which will create 300 more jobs. Excuse me. Envision AESC will invest $810 million in Florence to build a new state-of-the-art battery cell gigafactory and employ over 1,000 residents to supply technology-leading battery cells to power the next generation of electric vehicles. In Colleton County, Controlled Matic Pomega will build a 3 gigawatt-hour capacity lithium-ion battery factory that will produce grill-scale energy storage. The company's $279 million investment will create approximately 575 new jobs. Bosch made 2 announcements in 22 that continue to develop the company's nearly 50-year history in the state of South Carolina. In Anderson County, Bosch plans to invest $200 million and create up to 350 new jobs to expand operations to become the company's first production operation of fuel cell technology in the United States. And in Dorchester County, Bosch launched the production of electric motors to support the U.S. market demand for electrified vehicles, with plans for future growth. Bosch plans to invest $200 million and create up to 350 new jobs to expand operations to become the country's first production operation of fuel technology in the United States, as I said. Bosch plans to invest $260 million and create 350 jobs in North Charleston, with a combined investment of $625 million and 50 new jobs. Nucor Steel is expanding Berkeley County to include a new galvanizing line to meet the increased demand for steel and air separation unit to modernize the mill. A.E. Sween, a leading supplier in the ready-to-eat sandwich industry, will invest $38 million and create 300 new jobs in Greenwood County. In Greenville County, Health Supply of the U.S. is investing $150 million in creating 600 new jobs for a new manufacturing facility that will produce American-made personnel protective equipment. Keon North America will invest $400 million and create 450 jobs to reshore the manufacturing of core components for industrial lift trucks from China to Somerville. When I call your names, will the leaders from these companies here with us tonight please stand and be recognized? And ladies and gentlemen, if we please hold our applause until they're all standing. Excuse me. Mr. Jason Thompson, the Chief Financial Officer of Redwood Materials. Ms. Sherry McCraw, the Vice President of Human Resources of BMW. Mr. Jeff Deaton, the Managing Director for North America of Envision AESC. Mr. Bahadir Vetki, the Chief Executive Officer of Control Magnet Pomega. Mr. Mike Sweaty, the President of Bosch North America. Mr. Nathan Prain Gear, the Vice President and General Manager of Nucor Steel. Ms. Christy Broadwater, the Senior Vice President of Human Resources for EA Sween. Mr. Chris Garcia, the Chief Executive Officer of Health Supply US. Mr. Jonathan Dawley, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Keon, North America. And finally, our Secretary of Commerce, Harry Lightsey, and his remarkable team, which worked around the clock to produce these successes, and they are here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you all for making 2022 a record-breaking year in South Carolina, and this year, let's do it again. Thank you. Last year presented numerous challenges for the people of South Carolina, including those resulting from the misguided and unconstitutional policies of the Biden administration, such as dramatic inflation and sharp interest rate hikes. Left unchecked, runaway federal spending has created the specter of a recession on our horizon. Yet, I am confident about the future of our state because I have faith in the people and in those they elected to represent them in this General Assembly. And I'm excited to renew our successful partnership, one based on working together through collaboration, communication, and cooperation. Today, we are presented with an opportunity to take bold, transformative actions that will build prosperity for generations to come. The foundations of our successes rest on three pillars: economic strength, education, and our natural environment. This past November, South Carolinians overwhelmingly approved a constitutional amendment increasing the minimum required balance in the Rainy Day Reserve Fund. It was increased from 5% to 7% of the total amount of General Appropriations Act funds available to be appropriated in any year. I now ask the General Assembly to set aside an additional $500 million to voluntarily increase the Rainy Day Reserve Fund minimum balance from 7% to 10%. By saving this money instead of spending it, we can once again be prepared for any future economic uncertainties should they arise. Until recently, South Carolina had the highest personal income tax rate in the Southeast and the 12th highest in the nation. Last year, we worked together to pass the largest income tax cut in state history. I thank you for that. This made South Carolina even more competitive with other states for new jobs and capital investment. A tax cut has the impact of a pay raise, letting people keep and spend more of their hard-earned money, which itself is a catalyst for even more economic growth and prosperity. In February, the State Board of Economic Advisors is scheduled to issue an updated revenue forecast. Should an increase in future revenues allow, I ask the General Assembly to use additional funds to speed up the income tax cut schedule so taxpayers can keep even more of their hard-earned money. In addition, I recommend setting aside a significant amount of funds to reinvest in our state's record-breaking economic growth development efforts rather than borrowing it through the issuance of bonds, which increases our state's debt. A one-time appropriation of $500 million will allow the Department of Commerce to satisfy all outstanding obligations and incentives without borrowing money. The House recently approved this appropriation, and it is my hope that the Senate will follow suit. An additional one-time appropriation of $200 million will allow the department to identify and secure properties for future mega-site development. Rural South Carolina is beautiful. Rural South Carolina has everything it needs for beauty, peace, and tranquility. But what it needs for good public and economic health is water and sewer. The right water and sewer systems in a county can transform a tax base. That means jobs, good schools, strong families, and a safe and vibrant community. In 2022, the State Rural Infrastructure Authority received $800 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds, ARPA. Their purpose: replace, repair, and consolidate our state's aging and outdated rural water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure through competitive grants. The demand exceeded the supply, and RIA received grant applications in 2022 for almost $2 billion, greatly excess. This year, I am recommending that a minimum of $380 million in remaining ARPA funds be used to continue making these transformative water and sewer grants in our rural communities. There is no infrastructure more in need of big, bold, and continued investment than our state's roads, bridges, highways, and interstates. Our successes are outrunning our infrastructure. Last year, the Department of Transportation got almost $1 billion to accelerate and jumpstart construction, expansion, and improvements to our state-owned roads, bridges, highways, and to widen our interstates. However, in the immortal words of Jerry Reed, we got a long way to go and a short time to get there. So we got to invest more, and we got to move now. This year, my executive budget provides an additional $850 million to continue speeding up the completion of projects which will relieve traffic congestion on interstates and highways, repair or repave local roads, and fix over 400 bridges across our state. Education. Working together, we've taken bold steps to improve the education of our children that they receive in the classroom. Until last year, South Carolina's system for funding K-12 education was archaic and confusing, a piecemeal system consisting of 29 line item appropriations. Now, a consolidated formula makes sure that the funding follows the child. It keeps pace with student enrollments and provides financial resources to support a state average student-teacher ratio of 11.2 students per teacher, with an average teacher salary, including fringe benefits, of $72,991. My executive budget also increases state aid to classrooms by $254 million. To increase the percentage of children who enter our public schools ready to learn, we unleashed the free market and expanded full-day 4-year-old kindergarten to all at-risk children in the state. Parents may now choose the public, private, or for-profit child care provider that best suits the child's educational needs. Today, we are serving 16,103 at-risk children in that program, which is an all-time high. Last year, we were at 18 children eligible to participate in the state-funded full-day 4K kindergarten at St. Martin de Porres School located here in Columbia. St. Martin is a private school participating in the full-day 4K program. This year, parents of 9 of those children from the previous year wanted to enroll their children in 5-year-old kindergarten at the school, but they could not afford to pay the tuition. Thanks to the generosity of the Catholic Church, they were able to continue their education at St. Martin at no cost to the families. Jonathan McMillan is one of those children. He participated in the full 4-day program last year and is now enrolled in the 5-year kindergarten at St. Martin. According to his mother and teachers, Jonathan has been saved from future struggle and challenge by staying at St. Martin. Quote, he had challenges upon his arrival. He had different social skills that required the intentionality of our educational team. Jonathan is not shy. He is brilliant and a determined leader, end of quote. His teacher, Ms. Hare, says that her goal is to help him find his light so he can brightly shine to the world around him. Jonathan is here tonight accompanied by his mother, Ms. Jenna Boo, along with the principal of St. Martin, Ms. Dolores Gilliard. Ms. Gilliard has served as principal for 5 years. She completed a 40-year career at public schools in Richland One School District, spending 22 years as a principal before coming to St. Martin. Jonathan and ladies, will you please stand and be recognized? Thank you. My executive budget also provides $25 million in lottery dollars for the creation of education scholarship accounts, also called ESAs, pending a change in the law by the General Assembly. These funds will allow lower-income parents to choose the type of education environment and instruction that best suits their child's unique needs. Teacher pay. My executive budget also proposes to continue the remarkable progress we have made in raising teacher pay, and we must do more. New teaching positions are being created every year at new schools constructed to keep up with our growing population. 6 years ago, the minimum starting salary of our teachers was $30,113, and the average teacher salary was below the Southeastern average. Today, the minimum starting salary of our teachers is $40,000, and the average teacher salary now exceeds the Southeastern average. That is progress. My executive budget proposes increasing teacher salaries by $2,500 at every step in the state salary schedule, making the new minimum starting teacher salary $42,500. My goal by 2026 is a minimum starting salary of at least $500, $50,000. In addition, my executive budget provides every eligible public school teacher for the upcoming school year with a one-time $2,500 retention supplement, half in December, the other half in May. Miss McKenna Blankenship is a first-year teacher at Bay Road Elementary School in Darlington County School District. She teaches the first grade. Miss Blankenship was a teaching fellow at Francis Marion University, where she completed her bachelor's degree. She is the daughter of Ms. Jennifer Blankenship, also a teacher in the Darlington County School District. She teaches English and the teacher cadet program at the Mays High School for Math, Science, and Technology. The teacher cadet program is a high school course which encourages academically talented high school students to consider teaching as a career. McKenna always wanted to be a teacher. As she said, quote, "My mom was a lot of inspiration for my journey. I enjoy seeing students make connections with their life and what they are learning in school, but also the aha moment when they truly understand a concept. My first year is going awesome, and I could not have been more blessed with the community I chose. These students are bright and always begin the day with a surprise. I learn more as a teacher and a person every day. This career and opportunity with the students fulfills my life in more than one way." End of quote. McKenna and her mama are here with us tonight. Ladies, will you please stand and be recognized? Placing an armed certified school resource officer known as an SRO in every school in every county all day, every day has been one of my top priorities. At my request, the General Assembly began funding a grant program administered by the Department of Public Safety, DPS, to provide school districts with funds to hire more resource officers for our 1,283 schools. The grant program has been very successful and has more than doubled the number of officers assigned to a school, going from 406 to 982 in just 4 years. This year, I'm recommending an additional $27.3 million to provide an additional 188 schools with a school resource officer. With this appropriation, 90% of South Carolina's public schools will have a school resource officer assigned to their campus. In July of 2021, Michael Tucker was named Program Manager for the SRR program at the Department of Public Safety. During Mr. Tucker's first year working with school districts and local law enforcement agencies, the number of state-funded school resource officers increased by 74%. For his exemplary work to improve school safety in our state, Mr. Tucker was recognized in October as the DPS Public Servant of the Year. Joining Michael tonight is the Director of the Department of Public Safety, Rob Woods, and Chief of Staff, Michael Oliver. Gentlemen, please stand and be recognized. Thank you. To train our state's school resource officers, I recommend providing the State Law Enforcement Division with the $3.5 million to create the Center for School Safety and Targeted Violence. Located at the old Gilbert Elementary School, this partnership with the Lexington School District 1 will provide a state-of-the-art training center in a real-life setting for law enforcement officers and school personnel. Last year, we expanded the investigative jurisdiction of the State Inspector General to reflect concerns that South Carolinians have regarding the management of our public schools, especially the management of taxpayer funds by public school boards. It was a good first step towards restoring the public's confidence in the action of school boards. We should expand this transparency. To this end, the public should also know who's getting paid to influence decisions made by county, municipal, or school board officials. These lobbyists should be required to register with the State Ethics Commission, just like those who are paid to lobby the legislature. What's good for the State House is good for the schoolhouse. Members of the General Assembly, send me this legislation and I will sign it into law. We know that access to an affordable degree or skilled trade certificate is essential to ensure that our state has the trained and educated workforce to compete for jobs and investment in the future. Manufacturers in particular view the availability of skilled labor as critical to their decisions to invest here. To address the critical labor shortage affecting key sectors of our economy, I'm asking the General Assembly to invest an additional $78 million in lottery funds to expand workforce scholarships for the future through the South Carolina Technical College system. In the last 2 years, this highly successful program has empowered over 10,000 South Carolinians to earn an industry credential in high-demand careers like manufacturing, healthcare, computation, logistics, and construction. Gina Roccanella, a graduate of Airport High School in Lexington School District 2, is pursuing an associate degree in early childhood and elementary education from Midlands Technical College. In the afternoons, she works in an after-school program caring for preschool and elementary age students. After-school programs provide activities for students and allow mothers and fathers to work. After completing her associate degree, Ms. Roccanella plans to transfer to a 4-year college to complete her teacher certification requirements and become a teacher. She received a workforce scholarship to attend Midlands Technical College because all regions of our state face a critical shortage of child care workers. According to the U.S. Census Bureau labor statistics, there are 100,000 fewer child care workers today in America than before the pandemic. They are in high demand. Ms. Roccanella is joining us tonight, and with her is Dr. Ron Rames, president of Midlands Technical College. And this would not have been possible without the tremendous leadership of Dr. Tim Hardy, president of the State Technical College System, who is also here tonight. Will you all please stand and be recognized? All y'all. My executive budget marks the fourth consecutive year that I've asked the General Assembly to freeze college tuition for in-state students, with an appropriation to our institutions of higher education of $43 million. This represents the 5.2% increase in higher education price index for 2022 and is based on the number of in-state students enrolled at each public institution. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We are also providing a record amount of financial aid and scholarship for students in need. I propose providing $80 million so that every South Carolinian who qualifies for federal need-based financial aid as measured by the federal Pell Grants receives sufficient state financial assistance to attend any in-state public college, university, or technical college. And students at private, independent, and historically black colleges and universities will receive an additional $20 million for tuition grants and assistance. In just 2 years, the University of South Carolina has almost doubled the number of in-state students receiving need-based grants from 2,000 students to more than 3,900 from every county in our state. With us tonight is Jasmine Laura Guerrero, a junior at the University of South Carolina, majoring in political science. Upon graduating, she plans to pursue a PhD in political science. For the past 3 years, she has received a need-based grant. Ms. Guerrero is a first-generation college student. She is an Opportunity Scholar, a Ronald E. McNair Scholar, and a Magellan Scholar. She is part of the Gamecock Guarantee Program, which provides financial and academic support to first-generation college students, and she will graduate having no student loan debt. Before entering USC, Ms. Guerrero attended the Academy for the Arts, Science, and Technology, a public magnet high school in Myrtle Beach. Jasmine, please stand and be recognized. Ladies and gentlemen, we must continue to address the repairs needed at the aging state-owned buildings and infrastructure on the campuses of our four-year colleges, technical colleges, and universities. I ask the General Assembly to join me in paying down the state's deferred maintenance liability with $209 million in capital reserve funds to be distributed pro rata based on each institution's in-state enrollment. Let's pay for this right now rather than borrowing it and creating more debt. In addition, I ask that the General Assembly complete the funding of the Battelle Alliance, a collaborative nuclear sciences research partnership between the University of South Carolina, Clemson University, South Carolina State University, and the Savannah River National Laboratory. With an appropriation of $100 million in addition to the $20 million appropriated last year, this alliance will develop workforce training programs designed to develop a pipeline of new talent to fill engineering, science, research, and management positions for private industry and nuclear facilities, including those operated by the Department of Energy. The impact on our research campuses will be far-reaching and dramatic. Healthcare. It's clear that the mental health crisis exists in South Carolina following the COVID-19 pandemic, especially among our young people. Many are still struggling with the effects of disruptions, virtual instruction, isolation, and constant changes to normal routines. South Carolinians in crisis must have access to professional mental health counseling and services. To meet the growing demand for these services, I'm recommending an allocation of nearly $45 million to the Department of Mental Health. These funds will support the agency's ability to recruit and retain mental health professionals, provide inpatient services, increase access to crisis services such as suicide prevention hotlines, including one specifically for veterans, and community-based treatment services. Last year, I directed Health and Human Services Director Robbie Kerr to initiate an immediate review of our state's behavioral health funding and delivery system. It became clear from Director Kerr's efforts that the time has come to modernize and restructure South Carolina's siloed healthcare delivery agencies and the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Health and Environmental Control, among others. My executive budget includes a $5 million appropriation to the Department of Administration for the purpose of procuring the professional expertise necessary to analyze and provide the General Assembly by June 30, 2024 with a comprehensive plan to restructure these agencies, consolidating and privatizing wherever possible. Our booming economy sometimes puts our state agencies as a disadvantage with the private sector in recruiting and retaining good employees. My executive budget provides $78 million for recruitment and retention salary increases for state employees, $2 million for one-time $2,500 sign-on bonus for first-time state government hires, and $2 million to the Department of Administration so they can assist smaller state agencies with marketing and advertising efforts to fill those hard-to-hire positions. I'm also recommending that there be no increase in the employee-paid premiums for state health plan participants, and that we add, at no cost to state employees, an annual OB/GYN exam for all females, similar to the existing no-cost adult wellness visit, which was added 2 years ago. Finally, the South Carolina retirement system, often called the state pension plan, has one of the largest unfunded liabilities in the nation at nearly $24 million. The system only has assets equal to 64% of what is required to pay beneficiaries, which places our pension system fifth worst in the nation. Once again, I ask that the state pension plan be closed to new beneficiaries as of December 31, 2023, and that new employees be prospectively enrolled in the state optional retirement program, which is a defined contribution 401k plan. Another year of inaction is another year in which the unfunded liability will be in the pension plan will increase. What this means is we cannot kick this can down the road any further. Public safety. Keep South Carolinians safe, we must maintain a robust law enforcement presence and properly fund the police. Our state law enforcement agencies continue to lose valuable and experienced people because they're unable to remain competitive with pay and benefits of other agencies and private sector. Thanks to the compensation review conducted by Marcia Adams, Director of the Department of Administration, our state law enforcement and criminal justice agencies have begun to stem the tide of personnel loss with a $40 million in recruitment and retention pay raises provided in last year's General Appropriations Act. I am proposing that we continue to build on this momentum by providing an additional $21.5 million for recruitment and retention pay raises this year, with the understanding that we will continue doing it. I'm also proposing a $2,000 state income tax credit for every active duty law enforcement officer, firefighter, first responder, and emergency medical technician. This non-refundable tax credit will provide a total of $38.4 million in income tax relief for those who put their lives on the line each day to protect and serve our people. In addition, I recommend that we maintain the proviso suspending the $10,000 retirement cap for anyone enrolled in the police officers' retirement system. This will allow retired officers to return to work and fill existing vacancies, and it will make our state safer. How about the revolving door? Ladies and gentlemen, our law enforcement officers know who the repeat criminals are. They know who they are. The repeat criminals commit over 80% of the crimes, and they know who they are. 16th Circuit Solicitor Kevin Brackett shared a shocking example of how bad this problem is, and I present it to you now. On September 30, 2018, a repeat criminal, whose name I will not mention, who had a prior record of drugs, assault and battery, burglary, and illegal gun possession, was arrested and charged with possession of 2 stolen pistols, possession with intent to distribute crack and fentanyl, and to distribute it near a park or school, resisting arrest, and possession of a stolen M16A4 machine gun. As September 30, 2018. He was released on a $10,000 bond. Less than 4 months later, he was charged with domestic violence of a high and aggravated nature. For what? For violently assaulting his pregnant girlfriend. Once again, he was released on bond. Then a few weeks after that, this repeat criminal out on bond shot 2 people, killing 1. The surviving gunshot victim was the same pregnant girlfriend he assaulted weeks earlier. He also held 4 people at gunpoint, assaulting 3 of them with a hammer. He fled and then shot a 3rd victim later that same day, but she survived. Finally, after all that, he was arrested, convicted, and was eventually sentenced to life in prison. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, this is happening every day. My question is, how long are we going to let this keep happening? How long? What do we tell the families? What do we tell them? Law enforcement needs our help. They need stronger laws to keep illegal guns out of the hands of criminals and juveniles. They need new laws to close the revolving door and keep career criminals behind bars and not out on bond. That means we need no bond for repeat criminals. Those who commit a crime while out on bond should receive an automatic, mandatory 5-year felony sentence with no early release or parole on top of the sentence for their previous crimes. Currently, there are no graduated criminal penalties for illegal gun possession in state law. That means the penalty is the same no matter how many times the criminal gets caught. This provides no deterrent. Graduated felony penalties with no bond will help keep repeat criminals behind bars and not out on bail where they can commit more crimes. That's not all. We also need to stop shady bail bond practices. Last October, I directed the Department of Insurance to crack down on these practices within the limited authority that it has. Today, I propose to you the establishment of minimum standards for court-ordered GPS or electronic monitoring and the imposition of penalties on bondsmen who fail to maintain electric monitoring or fail to report violations of bond conditions to the court. Another point, we have today no means to carry out a death sentence in South Carolina, and nobody knows that better than the murderers and the killers. The families and loved ones of these murderers know it too. The Department of Corrections has been unable to carry out the death penalty by lethal injection since 2011. Because the companies that make the drugs will not sell them unless their identities are shielded by state law from anti-death penalty activists. 14 states have enacted such a shield law. Director Brian Sterling and I have asked the General Assembly to address this for 5 years. In an effort to solve this problem, you will remember that we amended the death penalty law to make the electric chair the default method if legal injection was unavailable, and added the firing squad as a new means of execution. It was immediately challenged in court, scheduled executions were halted, and we now, once again, await a decision by our state Supreme Court. Once again. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot keep waiting. I ask this General Assembly, pass a shield law. We must give these grieving families and loved ones the justice and closure they are owed by law, and tell the people of South Carolina that their government believes in the rule of law just like they do. We must also re-examine those issues, practices, and laws that make our state less competitive and make it difficult for families, businesses, and entrepreneurs to invest, grow, and thrive. One issue in need of re-examination is in the area of civil litigation known as joint and several liability. Nobody, including business owners, should be penalized for the actions of others simply because they have more money, nor should anyone be absolved of responsibility for their own actions. I am confident that we can find a common sense formula which will provide accountability and just compensation without damaging our economy, and we must do it. In addition, I suggest it is time for the members of the General Assembly who are attorneys to stop suing the bodies in which they serve, stop suing state agencies in plaintiff actions, and stop suing elected officials. This is absurd. It diminishes the public confidence not only in loyal legislators, but in the rest of state government as well. We must also ensure that the public has confidence in whom and how our state's judges are selected by making the process more transparent and accountable. South Carolina is one of two states in which the General Assembly selects the members of the judiciary. It appears that the confidence in this arrangement is waning. Too often, the people's business is unattended. Justice delayed is justice denied. I suggest that our founding fathers prescribed a method for judicial selection that has served our federal government well and with which the public is quite familiar. Gubernatorial appointment of all judges with the advice and consent of the Senate requires no reinvention of the wheel, will inspire the confidence of our people, and will encourage more excellent attorneys to seek public service. We should do that. Last year, the U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Dobbs against Jackson Women's Health Organization gave us cause for confidence when it recognized that Roe against Wade was egregiously wrong, and, quote, on the day it was decided, and that the U.S. Constitution does not prohibit states from regulating or prohibiting abortion. Unfortunately, the South Carolina Supreme Court delivered a temporary setback earlier this month. In a 3-2 decision, the court struck down the Fetal Heartbeat and Protection from Abortion Act. Our court concluded that it violated a South Carolina constitutional provision that was proposed and adopted before Roe v. Wade at a time when nearly all abortions were illegal in South Carolina. I say respectfully, the court's decision is at odds with the law and the facts, and the lead opinion's results-oriented reasoning threatens to disrupt our constitutional separation of powers. When I signed the Heartbeat Act into law, I was confident that it was constitutional. I still am. Therefore, I will be filing a petition for rehearing next week along with other state officials, and I remain optimistic that we will prevail in our historic fight to protect and defend the right to and the sanctity of life. Finally, our shared cultural and natural heritage, abundant natural resources, and prosperous economy make us the envy of others and attractive to all over this country and the world. Explorers for kings and queens marveled at our mountains, beaches, sea islands, and marshes. They reported back to their sovereigns that the land was lush, fertile, and brimming with abundance. And I have no doubt if they were here now, they would have the same reaction and say the same thing. When the French, Spanish, and English settlers began arriving in South Carolina over 450 years ago, there were about 24 groups of tribes or indigenous peoples, Indians, Native Americans, residing in the Low Country. The Ashpoo, Bohicket, Combee, Edisto, Kiowa, Siwee, St. Helena, and Wando, among others, lived and thrived here, and their names live on today as majestic rivers, sea islands, towns, and other entities. Currently, a number of these tribes are officially recognized. The Catawba Indian Nation, the Beaver Creek Indians, the Edisto Natchez Cusco Tribe of South Carolina, the PD Indian Nation of Upper South Carolina, the PD Indian Tribe, the Piedmont American Indian Association, the Santee Indian Organization, the Sumter Tribe of Cheraw Indians, the Waccamaw Indian people, and the Wakamassaw Tribe of Varnertown Indians. Many of these leaders of South Carolina's tribes are here with us today. Will you please stand and be recognized? By the time the English established the permanent settlement at Charlestown on the banks of the Ashley River in 1670, a global network for trading and selling West Africans into slavery was well established by European nations, sending enslaved people to Brazil, the West Indies, and the American colonies. Between 1700 and 1775, 40% of the enslaved West Africans entering the colonies did so through Gadsden's Wharf in Charleston, which today is the location of the new International African American Museum. They came from the Windward Coast, the Ivory Coast, and the Gold Coast areas of West Africa, known today as Senegal, Sierra Leone, the Republic of Congo, and Ghana. This importation of enslaved persons was criminalized in the United States in 1808. Many descendants of these people are proudly represented today by the Gullah Geechee Nation, some living in South Carolina on the Sea Island properties owned by their ancestors. The Penn Center on St. Helena Island, with its national landmark designation, serves as the cultural capital and historic repository for the preservation of our Gullah heritage. Queen Quet Margarita L. Goodwine, chiefess of the Gullah Geechee Nation, is with us tonight. Ma'am, please stand and be recognized. It is believed that the first European Jewish settlers arrived in Charleston around 1700 from all over Europe to take advantage of the civil and religious liberty afforded in the colony of South Carolina. The congregation of Kahal Kadosh Beth Elohim has been the oldest synagogue in continuous use in North America and is known as the cornerstone of American Reform Judaism. By 1800, South Carolina had the largest Jewish population of any state in the United States. More battles and skirmishes were fought during the Revolutionary War in South Carolina than in any other state, over 200. The victory at Cowpens over the British Army turned the tide of the American Revolution and secured life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for a new nation. And the term sandlapper was born from a colloquial nickname bestowed upon South Carolinians by retreating, I repeat, retreating British troops. Efforts are now underway to preserve the stories and places of all these historic events and people that I mentioned and others. Clearly, South Carolina has an incomparable culture and natural heritage and distinguishes our state and people from others. We must honor, preserve, and be good stewards of that which we have been given. Economic growth and preservation of our shared heritage are not opposing objectives which must be balanced as a competition, one against the other. Instead, they are complementary, intertwined, and inseparable, each dependent on the other. To strengthen one is to strengthen the other. The question today before us is, will anybody recognize South Carolina in 100 years from now? Will we allow our state's culturally and environmentally significant places, structures, monuments, lands, islands, and waters to be lost to overdevelopment, to mismanagement, to flooding, erosion, or storm damage? Or will we preserve and protect our history, our culture, and our environment, and the public's access to them before they are lost forever? This is our moment to act while we still can. To that end, I'm recommending that a total of $266 million be appropriated to the Conservation Land Bank, the Department of Natural Resources, and the Office of Resilience for the purpose of identifying and preserving culturally or environmentally significant properties and tracts in which the public access is in jeopardy of being lost forever. In closing, to the members of the General Assembly, I say let us continue our successful partnership, one that is based on communication, collaboration, cooperation, and trust. Let us embrace civility and comity through our thoughts, our actions, and our words, and urge our people, especially the young people, to be proud of their wonderful state. And let us set our state on a course that will provide these opportunities for prosperity, success, and happiness for generations of South Carolinians to come, our sons, our daughters, and theirs as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the best is yet to come in South Carolina. May God continue to bless America and continue to bless the great state of South Carolina.
And there you have it, Governor Henry McMaster wrapping up his sixth State of the State address in remarks that lasted some 57 minutes. And perhaps the big headline coming out of tonight's State of the State address has to do with the state's fetal heartbeat law. The governor announcing just a few moments ago he plans to challenge the state Supreme Court's ruling once again. He says he is going to file a petition for a rehearing on the matter next week, continuing to say that he believes the fetal heartbeat law in South Carolina is constitutional. The governor touched on a number of things, as he has done over the past several years, the economy being one of them, saying we have a booming economy in the state, calling our state government superior when it comes to its fiscal shape. He addressed infrastructure as expected, talking about fixing water and sewage in rural areas, our roads, our bridges, our highways, our interstates. He also mentioned putting school resource officers in every school across the state. Also proposing a $2,000 state income tax credit for first responders, including police officers and firefighters. And he asked lawmakers to pass that SHIELD law so the state of South Carolina could resume executions here in South Carolina. Again, these comments running about 57 minutes or so. We do have the Democrat response this evening. It is coming to us from Senator Ronnie Sabb from Williamsburg.
Good evening. I'm Senator Ronnie Sabb from Greeleyville, South Carolina, where I proudly represent the people of District 32 and serve as the Assistant Minority Leader. Moments ago, we listened to our governor, the Honorable Henry Dargan McMaster, deliver the State of the State address. We look forward to working with him and our Republican colleagues to help South Carolinians build and maintain safe and prosperous lives. The governor mentioned many exciting initiatives in his address. Democrats support the plans to improve our state roads and bridges, expand sewer and water services, and make broadband accessible to all South Carolinians. But let's be clear. Many of these investments are made possible because of the passage of the federal infrastructure bill under President Joe Biden. This is a classic example of our federal and state government working together to accomplish great things that benefit everyone. Democrats, welcome the governor and our Republican colleagues to the ongoing fight to stabilize college tuition costs. we must make higher education in South Carolina more accessible without our children being saddled with enormous student loan debt. Perhaps opening the door to college for more students will help remedy the massive teacher shortage our state is facing. Democrats have long supported increasing teacher pay. It has never been a secret that one of the reasons it is so hard to attract and retain teachers in South Carolina is because our salaries are simply not competitive. Increasing salaries will give our current teachers a fair and livable wage, draw in new talent, and encourage the next generation of bright minds to enter this vital and noble profession. Democrats have been fighting for teachers for a long time. Democratic legislators like Senator Darrell Jackson of Richland County and Representative Gilda Cobb Hunter of Orangeburg County have been tireless advocates for decades. What a relief to begin this new legislative year, knowing that finally Republicans are joining that fight. As newly elected leadership takes on the task of overseeing our public schools, I'd like to take this moment to thank our former State Superintendent of Education, Molly Spearman. Molly, we didn't agree on everything, but we worked together well for the children of our state. Over the last 2 years, the General Assembly has invested heavily in school facility repair. But in South Carolina, we still have 2 categories of school districts, the haves and, yes, the have-nots. The have-nots are mostly rural districts which struggle to build new schools, fix existing buildings, and provide a better and safer education for their students. To ensure that no matter their zip code, students have the opportunity to attend modern and safe schools, we need a recurring stream of state revenue dedicated to funding new facilities and making upgrades to outdated schools. With this funding, our state superintendent and school districts will be able to plan better for growth and for change. Education is our greatest weapon against poverty. We owe it to all of our children to simply give them a fair shot. We ask our governor and our Republican colleagues to support Senator Thomas McElveen and help us pass the Education Bank Act to build better schools. I say to our governor and my Republican colleagues, join Democrats in our efforts to provide better mental health care in South Carolina. Our state services and programs for those facing mental illness are shrinking. The Bill Street facility, which once served them, is closed. It's time to act. We must find new ways to provide health care for our most vulnerable. All too often, these South Carolinians find themselves homeless and end up in jail rather than in treatment. We've turned our backs on our neighbors. This is a statewide tragedy, but it can be remedied. Governor, join us. Let's pass the Mental Health Treatment Act. A few weeks ago, I attended the governor's prayer service. It was an excellent service, excellent sermon. One of the points the Reverend Dr. Derek Thomas made was, and I quote, "Good government should encourage good and discourage evil." Simple but true words. And that is why South Carolina needs to pass hate crime legislation. Folks, South Carolina and Wyoming are the only states in the United States of America that do not have hate crime legislation. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday we recently celebrated on the State House grounds, was an extraordinary observer of our country's strengths, weaknesses, and potential for good. He understood the corrosive power of hate. He knew that hate needed to be called out in order for it to be eradicated. Failing to call hate out, in his words, is when silence becomes betrayal. We ask our governor and our Republican colleagues of goodwill, we invite you to add your voice to ours. Be a part of good government, one that discourages evil. Let's pass hate crime legislation in South Carolina. New industries and jobs are coming. And so it's important that our focus remains on supporting ways to keep our economy growing and healthy. But a person working 40 hours a week, I submit, should not be living in poverty. Join us in increasing our state's minimum wage. Our economy should work fairly for those from top on down. Ladies and gentlemen, the Republican leadership in the South Carolina legislature has made it clear that two issues will be taken up, the debate of which will significantly impact how we live in our state. Your elected officials will debate over a woman's right to health care and spend tax dollars for private purposes. Both of these issues challenge how we currently view personal rights in our state. But yet again, we will see a renewed effort by factions of the Republican legislature to actually strip your liberties away. Inevitably, we will revisit the issue of a woman's right to choose. Our state Supreme Court has acknowledged that a woman has a constitutional right to privacy and has struck down the repeated attacks from Republicans seeking to limit a woman's access to health care during pregnancy. Women have a fundamental right to control their own bodies. Any decision they make is between them and their doctor, not, I repeat, not a group of male politicians sitting in judgment in Columbia. We trust South Carolinians and hope you do too. This issue should be placed on the ballot for a referendum vote, which will allow all South Carolinians to decide the issue and weigh in. The other issue, and quite frankly, efforts are already underway to require taxpayers to foot the bill for private education tuition in South Carolina. Democrats do not support this plan and have fought against similar plans since Governor Mark Sanford first proposed them many years ago. First, this proposed legislation is simply not constitutional. And second, it is a disservice to hardworking citizens of our state. Republicans will dress up their public funds for private schools plan in many disguises and try to win public support. But as an elderly lady told me years ago, son, a pig with lipstick is still a pig. But ultimately, using money from hardworking families and giving it to private for-profit schools is wrong. There is no right way to do this wrong thing. let me conclude by saying that the process of governing is not reserved to politicians. Governing is a joint process involving all citizens and their elected officials, both Democrats and Republicans. It's a partnership. That's why I want to encourage everyone to make their voices heard as we work, debate, and pass legislation in 2023. We need to hear from you. I, like many of you watching tonight, grew up poor. I tell folks that I have come from the outhouse to the state house, that we lived in a house that had a skylight before skylights became popular, our tin roof with holes in it. I've said that we could tell whether there were chickens underneath our house, not because they cackled, but because we could see them through the cracks in our wooden floors. Thanks to the love of family and good neighbors, along with the sacrifices of those in the struggle during the civil rights era, this country boy from Greeleyville, South Carolina, is addressing you tonight. I submit that the struggle continues. Different issues for a different time. A time such as this. We must fight and ensure that future generations of our children are afforded the opportunity for a prosperous future, just as I was. And so let us march on until victory is won. Victory for every South Carolinian is simply to have a fair shot at success. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you, and may God bless the great state of South Carolina.
Again, Senator Ronnie Sabb of Greeleyville over in Williamsburg County with a Democrat response saying many of the things the governor wants to do, they mentioned during his State of the State address tonight, will be funded by the federal government under President Biden. He mentioned that Democrats are all for teacher pay, all for more money for mental health, and passing hate crime legislation. And he also addressed minimum wage, saying that South Carolinians should be paid more for doing 40 hours a week. He also mentioned Democrats agree with the state Supreme Court's decision to basically shut down the fetal heartbeat law, saying that the vote ultimately must be put to the voters, put it on the issue, put it on the ballot, let voters decide what to do about abortion in the state of South Carolina. Of course, we have all of this for you on our website right now, WLTX.com. We have crews at the State House getting response as well. Our State House insiders will join us tonight at 11 to give us their take on tonight's comments. That and more later tonight on News 19 at 11. See a story you loved? Watch it again right now on WLTX Plus, available on Roku and Fire